In this week's Torah portion, the portion of Shlach, we read about the devastating chapter of Israel's history, the spies that returned from spying out the land of Canaan and brought back an evil report. And they spoke in very negative, derogatory terms about the situation in the land of Israel. And except for Kalev and Yehoshua, who remained faithful to God, the rest of the spies, who had started out as truly righteous men, had some sort of serious personality shift, some sort of crisis in confidence and faith, and they besmirched the land of Israel. And consequently, we read in the beginning of chapter 14 that the entire congregation of Israel lifted up their voices and cried that night and complained about Moshe and Aaron, and they expressed the desire to have died in the desert. And we know historically that this was on the 9th of Av, and this in fact became the first Tisha B'Av, whereas our sages inform us that God basically reacted and said, well, if you're going to be crying tonight for absolutely no reason, you will have a reason in the future to cry on this night. And as we read in this chapter, chapter 14, we see that God, in fact, did acquiesce to Moshe's request, and he did, in fact, forgive the people for this heinous crime of slandering the land of Israel. But we also find that it was in this very chapter, and as a result of this incident, that God made his decision, passed a decree that this generation, the generation who expressed a lack of faith in him, as expressed through his promises about the land of Israel, this generation would not come into the land. And as he states in verse 21, however, as I live and my glory, the glory of the Lord fills the whole earth, all of these people who have seen my glory and my signs that I have done in Egypt and in the desert, and have tested me these 10 times, and have not hearkened to my voice, these people will not see the land that I swore to their fathers. And all those who annoy me will not see it. And in fact, we know that this entire generation perished in the desert, and it was their children of whom they expressed such concern that they would perish in the desert. Their children, in fact, inherited the land. This is a very, very awesome lesson, especially in our times. You know, the children of Israel, as the verse says, tested God, annoyed him. And there were many examples of this lack of faith. And in fact, don't forget, this is the same generation that made such a terribly serious blunder under the evil influence of the mixed multitude and worshipped the golden calf. And for that act of what would seem to be blatant idolatry, God forgave them. But when it came to speaking evil speech, tale-bearing, gossip about the land of Israel, when they spoke lashon hara, evil speech about the land, that was the last straw. And God did not forgive them. In other words, the awesome concept that we see unfolding here is that God was able to forgive them and to look aside, as it were, for a lack of faith and a personal insult regarding his own unique sovereignty. They said that the golden calf is God, and yet that was not a problem. God ultimately forgave them. But when it came to the honor of the land of Israel, which is the reflection of the sovereignty of the God of Israel in this world, when it came to the baseless besmirching about the land of Israel, for this, God was not able to forgive them. And this was the cause of the decree that this generation would wander in the desert until that entire generation would perish and their children would come into the land. So, when it came to speaking ill against the land of Israel, this is something that God could not forgive. And this is an important lesson for us in our time to understand the importance, the holiness, the centrality of the land of Israel in God's plan.